very much for this warm introduction. I'm very, very excited to be here with you. Thank you, Dr. Mike, for introducing what STEM is, and I'll spin off that a little bit. I just want to approach this kind of presentation casually to speak with you in a peer way, so I can peer influence you of what STEM sustainability solutions are, and encourage you, give you hopefully a positive perspective that we all can create STEM and sustainability solutions. So essentially what our peer here talked about in STEM, yes, we do have this idea that it is a school, which is correct in Egypt, there are STEM schools in Egypt, but it's not only a school. STEM in particular, it's the name of science, technology, engineering, and math, right? But also, how does that intersect with sustainability is the topic of our talk. And then we're going to learn more about when we can intersect them, how can we create solutions as teenagers. So before actually going into that, I want to know, just by raising your hands, have you heard about sustainability before? Cool. Can anybody give an explanation, a brief explanation of what sustainability is? Cool. Somebody last time.
تبقى حاجة مستدامة أكتر، ما لهاش مثلا تضرر البيئة أوي.
Cool. Yeah. So essentially, the way you have to think about sustainability is in an environmental way, which is correct. It's not the only way. It's the biggest asset in STEM and in sustainability, but it's not the only thing. But it's going to be the cause of our talk today, the environmental part of sustainability. So sustainability essentially is meeting your own needs in the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of the talk outline today, so we can kind of don't get lost, I would like to introduce you basically from a personal experience and from a personal perspective, because this topic is very personal to me. I've been for the past year and a half or two creating STEM sustainability solutions worldwide. I've been traveling the world. I'm a traveler. And I would like to share with you my experience, and I would like to also share a little bit of my core values, which is the first half of my talk. I'll introduce what Kaizen is, what Pishki is, and then I'll tell you how to self-reflect on your own core values, so you can take that from just being core values, you understand yourself, and then later in the future, you know how to use project-based learning or the design thinking cycle in order for you to create meaningful impact. So essentially utilizing your own core values and your own understanding of yourself to have a motivation, something that drives you to make an impact in the society and the community around you. So I would like you to imagine, very briefly, that you are out of shape, you would like to go to the gym, and then you go to the gym for 3 days in a row. Now, after 3 days, if you look at the mirror, are you going to see objective results? No. Exactly. But does that mean that the efforts that you did for 3 days are insignificant? They are significant. It's tiny changes, remarkable results, right? So Kaizen is essentially the core value of that, or our understanding of that. Kaizen is basically this combination of two Japanese words that means continuous improvement, and it means that we acknowledge that tiny changes might not reap them like the results that we see right now, but in the future we will be able to see them. So having this mindset, you'll essentially be able to see, oh well, I know that the habits that I'm building right now I might not see the results immediately, but I have this mindset that in the future it's going to create significant improvement and significant results. And since we're learning from the best, the Japanese, I feel like there's no reason to be it's okay to be humble and learn from the people who basically led the world in sustainability. So I feel that Kaizen for me has been a core value since I was very young. But also to explain it a little bit in a mathematical way. Anybody here likes math? Wow, oh wow, that's impressive, wow. Cool, that's the whole point of standard, right? Here in a book, it's called Atomic Habits. It's talking about continuous improvement. Like basically like spinning off the concept of Kaizen, just explaining it differently. And it's talking about that if you created 1% change every single day, you're going to see 38 times better results 1 year from now. And it doesn't matter in which field. You can take it as a gym example, so you'd be like 38 times better. I don't know, maybe you're like Big Runner or something. But not necessarily. You can take it in art, for example. You could be an artistic person, and if you develop an art skill, your art is going to be better mathematically 38 times. Because if you multiply that, if you see like this dotted line is the norm, and then you power that by the 165, it's going to give you like rounded up to 38 times. So I guess that's the mindset that I've had throughout my journey. I just didn't quite know that I have it until I self-reflected, which is something very important for all of us to have. To sit down, write on a piece of paper, or if you don't, I mean, not all of us likes writing, and it's fine. Maybe just think about it, like meditate, think about it in your prayers, you know? What are your core values? And I didn't quite realize that until I self-reflected. So essentially, when I was very young, I would create like coding projects just for fun. When I was like 9 years old, I was introduced to Scratch. I heard stories and read like a very brief introduction about a Persian mathematician. His name is Muhammad al-Khwarizmi, which is the founder of algorithms. And I think it was quite fascinating. I created this own world for me of binary numbers, of zeros and ones. I would spend that favorite part of everyday coding, and it's a way for me to get away from all the challenges that we face as kids, as teenagers, whatever. So essentially, I thought that the whole world of science, technology, engineering, and math, all of it is just coding. I started with like web development, with very basic HTML, CSS stuff, with like after that with like PHP, personal home pages, or whatever they call it now. But then I realized that it is just a sphere, it is just my own world in such a bigger circle. So the bigger circle, I did start realizing it later. I showed quite good abilities in coding, and I was applying into different STEM programs worldwide, and I got selected into one program that was held by a university in the United States for 10 months straight. I did it in grade 10, and it was quite a challenge to balance between my education here in Egypt and also kind of like leading the coding projects or the STEM projects that I'm doing worldwide. But essentially what I realized is that there are bigger circles that I had no idea about. And then my ties and core values inside of me shifted. I wanted to improve. I wanted to know what STEM is, right? So I would learn about chemistry, all of the stuff that I've been learning in school, the theory, chemistry, biology, physics. I wanted to take that into the next step. I wanted to create actual projects, and I wanted to know how these theory leads to the real world problems and the real world examples. And just by having this mindset in general, I started applying to more programs. I got rejected from some of them. I got accepted to some of them, and it's okay to fail. That's another thing we'll talk about. But essentially, I was selected to this unique scholarship program where I traveled the world and create STEM and sustainability solutions. So I traveled to more than 5 different countries in the past year and a half of my life, and one of them inspired me for something else. It was not only STEM. There's one more thing I had no idea about. One more thing I didn't learn about. I honestly haven't heard about it before, which is the concept of sustainability. And it's quite a hard word, it's quite a hard word to right? Quite a hard word to understand. My Kaizen mindset inside of me also still shifted, and I wanted to know more. I wanted to know what sustainability is. So essentially, one of the countries that I went to it was Botswana. Has anybody heard of Botswana, by the way? Botswana. Cool. All right. So Botswana is a country. It's in the southern part of Africa. It's in the top of South Africa, It's a very, very biodiverse country. It has the world's largest population of elephants. It's impressive, honestly. We used to make jokes of like, oh, we saw more elephants than people. We were living entirely in the wilderness for like a week or two. We created our own tents and we slept there. Like we could hear the sounds of the roaring sound of lions and the laughing sounds of hyenas. And yeah, it was quite scary, but also we had our own safety protocols and safety precautions. But that's not the point. The point was living around this kind of environment, an environment that is biodiverse, an environment that is in the wild. I wanted to conserve the environment. I felt the need inside of me that, oh, sustainability is actually important. I'm all around with all of those animals, all of this biodiversity. And biodiversity is not only animals, by the way, it's animals, plants, all the environment around us. And I wanted to conserve it. So, hence why I was introduced to the concept of pishti. So pishti is initially it's a Mexican an Aztec word, which is an indigenous Mexican language, which means the guardian for the environment. I saw that people in my school were essentially very caring to the environment. At the beginning, I'm going to be honest, I don't understand why very caring to the environment. But I wanted to learn more. I wanted to understand why. And pishti was a concept that was created by one of our students who is now an alumni, because basically we travel the world and they wanted us to be more conservative to the environment around us while that we are traveling. I heard this talk a lot about when you want to find your actions in order to protect the environment. You have their own little sustainability committee, and I wanted to be part of that. And I was very honest. I was like, okay, I don't know anything about sustainability, but I do know one thing. I know STEM. I know how to make impressive research. I know how to collect data appropriately, but I want to learn about sustainability. So how about we make a deal? I would like to be part of your team, but, well, I mean, it's reciprocity. I'm going to learn about sustainability. I'm going to create content for your social media that is science-based, and I'm going to intersect my own values for Kaizen, my own values for STEM, into creating those kind of science-based content, right? And it was like an intersection between my own values and what we also value. And throughout my own learning, I tried to understand the concept of sustainability. So one of the first things I learned was the carrying capacity, which is essentially everything around us has a carrying capacity. So our own world has a carrying capacity of energy, or this analogy of rabbits. Imagine these two rabbits. They are going to an environment of X number of carrots. So the environment can sustain 10 rabbits. The carrots regrow, you can eat them, but then they're going to regrow again, right? But if they are going to make more than, if the rabbits are going to produce more than the 10, well, rabbits are going to die because the environment cannot sustain them anymore. And since rabbits are selected species, they go married, and yeah, they produce a lot of children. These are 12 rabbits. They are more than what the environment can sustain, and hence why sustainability. And therefore, the parrots did not produce as quickly, and the rabbits became started to die until the environment was able to regenerate again, which means that yes, the environment can regain its own self-confidence. The environment can regain being sustainable if we adapt our actions. So yeah, this is a little graph of what happens with the rabbit population as an analogy to what happens with humans as well. There is an exponential growth. It's talking about population-wise, in terms of the number of rabbits. Exponential growth at the beginning. When it happens in overshoot, when they overshoot the carrying capacity, they begin to die, and then the die-off happens. After the die-off, they are less than the carrying capacity again, and they start reproducing again, and it's a loop, you know. So if you look at it in our own world, we're not living in a world of rabbits, are we? Right? In our own world, we are trying to look at it in the concept of overconsumption, over-consuming resources. So the carrots are all of the energy that we have in our world. right? It's the energy that are used to make plastic water bottles. It's the energy that you use at homes, the electricity, all of the energy that we have on planet Earth. So the energy that we have on planet Earth is essentially, it's not unlimited, it is limited. And if you're going to use more energy than what you have, then you're unsustainable. You're going to reach a point where you need not just one planet, you need like a whole different number of planets. So for instance, this graph, it shows you that very developed countries, they need at least 10, like 9 or 10 planets, or like equivalent planets of Earth to the equivalent planets of Earth in order for them to live. If every single country was living like the developed countries are, we need 9 Earth, like 9 equivalent energy of Earth at least, so we can live sustainably. And well, that's causing a problem because it's basically a correlation between the Human Development Index, which is how we develop as countries, and the overconsumption that we make. So basically, if you are becoming more and more developed of a country, you are going to overconsume more resources. Because think about it this way: you do have electricity in your homes, but indigenous people in Mexico, indigenous peoples in countries in Africa, they don't have those kind of electricity. They don't have those kind of resources. They are not consuming energy. They are just living sustainably. They are living. They have their own cattle, for example, and they're just living their whole life sustainably. We're using much more resources. And if you move somewhere else, to like New York, or like, I don't know, or Dubai, right? You're even using more energy because it's such a small space of a skyscraper, and you're using all of this energy and electricity. And that is draining the Earth of the energy of the carrots that it has, if that makes sense in a way. And so I learned about all of that throughout my research with this sustainability committee. And I was like, okay, hey, I really care about that now. I traveled to these countries, I saw what the environment looks like, and I lived around all of these biodiversity. So I want to change my core values. I want not only to be Kaizen, not only to be continuous improvement, but I want to be a guardian for the environment. I want to be fish king. So basically, yeah, just a little bit of the things that we overconsume every day. The water, there's no need to overconsume water. Electricity, but also food waste is a huge one. We think about food waste as only, oh, there are other people who are needing food, and it's true, it's morally, ethically true, but also it is a leading cause of climate change. When you throw away food, the methane that is, like the methane and the chemical byproducts, they cause climate change because it is part of the greenhouse gases, and it affects our atmosphere and weather. And therefore, like, just by knowing, like, just by having this knowledge, I had this kind of morality inside of me. Well, I don't really want to throw away food, although sometimes it happens. It's just something that inside of me that shifted. So I would like you to take a moment, 2 minutes, to self-reflect. I would like you to think about what your values are. So my values, Kaizen and fishing, it can be an inspiration. So maybe like I don't know, a note or phones, whatever. Write down 2 of your core values. Fair? Everybody? Anybody? Could you bring up notebooks? If you have notebooks. Or paper. Nice. Okay, that's fine. If you do not have a paper, that's alright. You can just think about it. Have in mind 2 core values that you have. Try to self-reflect. I understand it's quite difficult. Self-reflect from the, like, just from the start. Be like, oh my god, these 2 values that I have already. If you haven't self-reflected before, that's nearly impossible. But just to brainstorm ideas, what are the core values you have in your own education? Do you value hard work? Nice. Do you value continuous improvement? Cool. Do you value challenging assumptions? Nice. Do you value the 20% these skills? I don't know what 20% is. Cool. So these are just like brainstorming ideas. When you get home, I would love for you to reflect. So now you're this amazing person. You reflected in your own core values. You have your own motives. You have your own like derivatives of creating, of initiating ideas. Because honestly, when you think about it, people who cure cancer, right? Researchers who decided that cancer is their passion of research. Many of them have personal experience with that, right? They might have survived cancer themselves, or they might have someone close to them, their parents or their siblings that go through cancer. And when they experienced that, they were like, okay, hey, I want to actually make a change, right? Which is why we do self-reflection, which is why we understand our own core values. When you do understand what you really value in life, it could be anything. It could be like, I don't know, I value how much alive, so I want to be enlightened, right? It's your own core value inside of you. When you initiate this own, when you understand these own core values, you have motivations for creation. And yes, you as a teenager, yes, I as a teenager, can create meaningful change in our community. I mean, look at us. I have heard about like pronets or something like that in your school, which is quite impressive. Like, support your friends, guys. Come on, you know, creating this kind of change in like as being a teenager. Yes, there are a lot of challenges, but you can do it. The only thing is, you have to know your motivations. If you have a motivation, you can do anything about it. So that's why I would love to introduce to you what project-based learning is. Project-based learning is a way that I've also talked about. You have all of these theory that you read in your textbooks, but project-based learning is a teaching method, but also you can do it in visual, in a way that you take the theory out and relate that to the global and local problems that you have in the community and society, right? So you learn about all of these amazing concepts in science, chemistry, biology, physics, and more, but the next step is taking this knowledge and creating change, creating STEM and sustainability change. So I would like to introduce you what we do as project-based learning. I have an example right here of a project that I did in Dubai, when I was in Dubai. It was also an intersection of STEM and sustainability. It was robotics, a robotics project, and we started it not knowing that we want to do it with sustainability. Actually, it was just any robot that creates a social improvement or some kind of change in our society. And what we like to do as teams when we're working together, because collaboration is a huge part as well, we like to sit down together and create a driving question. So a driving question is a way for you to basically have a scope. You want to investigate this topic and you want to create change in this kind of topic. So the driving question that we had, how can I design and build a robot inspired by Expo 2020 and the Mobility Pavilion that performs an action for social impact? Has anybody heard about Expo, the World Expo? Cool. Nice. So yeah, the World Expo is just like an event that was in Dubai that all countries come together and celebrate concepts like their innovations like in sustainability and more. And we had the privilege to be going there. And we wanted to be inspired by some of their innovations and create our own innovations. And then, hence why we decided on this driving question on this scope. When you create your own project, and create your own individual or teamwork project, maybe a good way to start is writing your driving question. And when you write a driving question, try to break it down. You write, basically you highlight the keywords and try to break it down. Literally, like going to Google Translate or the definitions of what words mean is very important because you all have an understanding. You all have a common ground of what you want to do, what is the scope of your project. After that, setting intentions. Right here, I was setting my intentions. Something that was not at all related to sustainability. I didn't know that I want to do it related to sustainability, but I set my intentions that I have this coding and programming knowledge, and I wanted to take it further to the next step. And I also wanted to create some kind of a robot that creates social change in our surrounding environments. So that is quite a cool robot, right? Yeah, I did not create that one. I just drew it, right? That is something very important in project-based learning. That was a sustainability robot. I talked a lot about the energy, about the carrots that are on Earth, that are going to be, they're just not infinite carrots, they're limited, and if you continue like consuming unsustainably, they're going to be gone. So this robot was inspired by the carrots idea, and essentially bringing energy from space. So like going to the, it just captures the asteroids and comes back to the asteroids so it can like get the minerals and all of the energy that are in the surrounding asteroids in space. So it's great to be ambitious in project-based learning. Think high, think very, very high. Think like you can leave the world. Yes, you can. You can leave your own community. You can do a lot of changes as a teenager. Trust me, there are a lot of challenges, but think big and take action steps. It's fine. Failure is okay. If you didn't reach the goals, it's fine. Reflect on that, move on, improve next time. So I decided to change it. Yeah, we were in Dubai, but I don't think we had the technology to send robots to space, right? So instead, I was like, okay, I also really care about overconsumption again. I really care about sustainability again. So I want to make it something related to that. I realized that in Dubai, unlike us, we don't have the Nile River. We don't have a privilege, and we should be thankful for that. The Nile River, there is like a source of fresh water. They have like a little bit of underground water and like the sea, the oceans around them, right? So what they use is they actually use a lot of energy to take the salt out of the water, right? What's known as desalination. And it makes the water resources, the fresh water resources in Dubai in particular, is very precious. And when they use it, it's not only for drinking, it's also for agriculture. In fact, 70% of the water that we consume annually is not for drinking, it's for farming. But 40% of that 70% is lost to the environment. Does that make sense? So it's because of like inefficiencies in farming and work. We don't send the water to their spots correctly, and therefore the water evaporates, or the water is basically lost, and you just use an amount of water that you don't need it. You can't conserve more than 40% of that. So I was like, hey, why don't we create a robot to fix that issue, right? If there's a robot that tells you exactly the amount of water that you need to put, and then maybe even automate the process of like irrigation, well, that's it, that's fixed. We just need a machine learning model. Yeah, quite complicated, but we can do that as teenagers. And we need a concrete plan. So we decided with that, my team and I gathered together. We were like, okay, this is the plan. We created a model, like digitally, and we created a plan. We were like, okay, we're going to save 40% of the water. And the next step is creating a prototype. What do we need? So just settle down right here, right? We decided, we had a driving question. We understood our community. We chose our scope. We changed our scope. We decided that we were going to be committed to the water project. And then the next part is that you have decided and identified everything that you're going to do. You have a concrete plan, and by the way, it can change, right? But you have a concrete plan, like initial concrete plan. You're going to go into the prototyping. Has anybody heard of the word prototype before? Nice. So prototyping is a way for you to test out an idea. You have this amazing idea. You have this amazing concept as a teenager that is related to sustainability, right? And you wanted to take it to the next step. The only problem is when you go to investors, when you go to adults, when you go to like people who judge you, which I mean, yes, we're going to be judged in our ideas, which is fine, reflect on that. You need to have a concrete plan. So what you present to them is a product. It is a minimum viable product. It is a prototype. So we decided, well, okay, look, this is the stuff that we need to do. This is the things that we need to get. We started prototyping. We actually had 2 robots. One of them I was working with it, and the other one, it was also a group effort. So we decided to like, oh, I have coding skills, I'm going to leave the software department. Other people had hardware skills, so they helped me like put things together. And then we went to the World Expo in Dubai and showcased our robots in one of the pavilions of the World Expo, right? And the thing with showcase is you're not only being like, oh, hey, I have this awesome creative concept, I have this awesome creative idea, but you are inviting investors. Not only that, if your idea maybe doesn't work, which is okay, you're going to have a lot of ideas that doesn't work. Let me give you an example of Thomas Edison, by the way. Thomas Edison, before he created a light bulb, he failed literally 1,000 times. And even like his friends in the scientific community, they would make fun of him, they would laugh at him, they would be like, oh, like what are you doing? You keep failing. What is this light bulb idea that you have that you're never going to create anyway? And basically you're crazy until you succeed and then you become a genius, right? So it's fine, we have to deal with that, right? So you're inviting investors, but also you're inviting feedback. And feedback is very important. I want someone to explain to me what feedback is. What is feedback?
So feedback is where people give you advice or what they think about your project in general, more going about the tiny details that you maybe missed or didn't notice.
Perfect. That is literally the perfect definition. I did not even know how to describe that well. So good job. Yes, feedback is a way for you inviting responses to take notes of the people's reactions when they see the product. And it can come from very different levels. It can come from an expert level where you're like creating this cool, like maybe you're creating an art project, so you go to an artist and ask for feedback. They're going to give you very specific and concrete feedback. But you might get to like a person who isn't really into art and tell you his feedback like, oh, I feel like this art piece makes me feel calm, for example. So it's just a user feedback, right? So when we went to the World Expo, we were inviting potentially like investors, but also professional feedback. And feedback is not only really in projects, it's in everything that we do in our everyday life. If you do a homework in school and you get feedback, you gotta reflect on that. Maybe you don't like the feedback, and you gotta reflect on that when you give the teacher, oh, I don't like the feedback because of this, and that. It doesn't align with what I want to achieve. But maybe you do. Just be open-minded about it. Like, be open-minded about, first of all, asking for feedback, and second of all, understanding and receiving feedback. Be calm about it. And understand the first thing that we have as human nature is to become defensive, especially that we have put a lot of work and effort into our projects, into our work. If you create an essay, if you wrote an essay and created like this kind of an art, like, I don't know, you just thought that your essay is very beautiful, right? And then you had feedback from your teacher that, oh, you need to improve this, maybe grammatically, or maybe the flow of your essay doesn't really work. You gotta reflect on that, right? Be like, why do people think about it? Why do people think about it that way? Maybe ask for me for more feedback from other people, right? So just be mindful, be open-minded about feedback. It helps a lot, especially if you want to be creating sustainability projects. So, yeah, let's recap. What happened in the projects that I did? So, what happened is we did something called a design thinking cycle. It is a tool that we use in project-based learning. The design thinking cycle is basically a way for teams to work, collaborate together, to challenge assumptions into the problems that we have right now. The current solutions that we have right now, maybe they're not the best solutions. They might be efficient, but maybe they're not the best. And prototype and test. So, empathize is the first thing. Listening to other people. How did I know that in Dubai you don't have the library? I could have Googled it, but honestly I didn't. I just learned about it when I was there because I had the open mind to learn and empathize, to listen to people, right? And then the next step is defining. So you have what you're going to country, you're going to a project, you're going to your own community and you want to create a project in that community. You're going to your own school and you want to create a project in that school. Yeah, there are a lot of problems, trust me, like even if you go to like the heaven and earth, there are problems, right? But the thing, like what makes you really creative is if you have the ability to define a scope, to define your own problem, right? So we define our own problem, not space, because that was too ambitious, but creating an automated like robots for water projects, right? After that, you have ideas. You want to IT. You're this very creative individual. You think about projects all the time, and you're generating ideas. You can use brainstorming tools. You can write down your ideas. You can talk to your peers around you. You can talk to your teachers, your educators, and more. So you can just have a list of ideas, and then when you have a list of ideas, you kind of like break them down, each of them, write the pros and cons of each of them, and be like, okay, this idea doesn't work, maybe I should go with that idea. Right? Now, prototyping, the robot itself. Yeah? You have these skills. You know what skills you don't have. That's why you have teammates. That's why you self-improve. That's why you have ties and everything reflects on it together. Look at my presentation, it's really good. And when you create this kind of prototype, you finally and eventually test it. Testing, meaning, oh, is the robot moving? Maybe the robot doesn't move. Maybe you put all of the work and effort and then the robot just decides to not move at all. Well, that's a problem, right? That's why we test. And when testing, also receiving feedback from experts. I know I don't want to be redundant, but I feel like this is very, very important. So, this is your first project-based learning project-based learning product that you're going to do, if you haven't done one already. I want you to start with the driving question, and I'm going to join you with that one. How can we utilize our knowledge and values, creating change as teenagers? Have that driving question with you in mind. Have ideas to improve our surrounding community, make it more sustainable and more environmentally conscious. How can we use our knowledge in STEM and sustainability to create meaningful impact in our society? So, just wanted to let you know, we believe in you. It's fine, it's a lot of work. I understand. As teenagers, it's very challenging as well, but we can do this. So, remember the habits? Remember the gym example I told you at the very beginning of the presentation? I would like you, right now, to have one habit of mine in your mind that you want to develop over the next 2 weeks. Cool? Everybody think about it. One habit that you want to develop over the next 2 weeks. And remember, it's not the one day that you go to the gym. It's the significant improvements that you reap from the tiny changes that you make. It's called, like the book Atomic Habit, where I reference that from, tiny changes, remarkable results. You know? Also, if you love reading, I encourage you, I really, really, really encourage you to read that book, Atomic Habits. It really inspired me in a lot of ways. It still inspires me in a lot of ways. I reread it all the time. The concept of Kaizen, the concept of continuous improvement is what led me to be from this very little programmer sitting in my own room into learning more about STEM, into traveling the world, into learning more about sustainability. And I just want to peer influence everyone to do that. And I really hope that today I brought a positive perspective and that I gave you an idea that yes, we can create change. Thank you.